I, 29 female, have a civil relationship with my ex, 29 male, despite him cheating on me with my sister, 32 female. My sister is now demanding I have a relationship with her too. I, 29 female, I'm the youngest of four. I have a brother, 35 male, and twin siblings, 32 male and 32 female. This is about my sister. Buckle up, this is a long one. From the moment I could remember, my sister has always hated me. Not the typical hate between siblings, but true hate. Everything I did she had to outdo, every boy I liked she had to have first. She has gone out of her way to bully me more times than I can remember. The only people who stepped in were my brothers. My father was absent due to his work, and my mother clearly had a favorite, and that wasn't me. I learned early on that I needed to protect myself, and if it wasn't for my brother and best friend, 29 male, I'm pretty sure my self-esteem would have plummeted. The stories I have relating to my sister's and mother's abuse could be written into a novel, and there's far too many. Anyway, fast forward to my college days when I kept low contact with my mother and no contact with my sister. I met a guy. We dated for 2 years. We fell in love, the usual stuff. Then on the day of my graduation party, I caught him and my sister doing the nasty in the guest house. Well, that partly quickly turned into a disaster. Turns out their affair had been going on for 4 months and she claimed to be in love with him and was carrying his child. Mother begged me, literally this woman begged me, to let my boyfriend go, to make that sacrifice for my only sister. Her literal words, by the way. By the time that party was over, my ex barely escaped without getting beaten to death by my brothers, uncles, and my one crazy aunt. Love that woman. I did even in fact break up with him on the spot, but not for my sister or mother, but because he betrayed me. I knew I couldn't trust him, and thanks to the wonderful support system I have, I knew I deserved better. After that disaster, I moved to the other side of the country to begin my new job. Now, I'm highly in demand in my field due to my degrees and specialties, which has allowed me to rise up in the ranks quite quickly and earn far more than I could spend as I live in a rather modest way, with the only thing I splurge on being trips and food. In those 7 years living away from most of my family, I haven't spoken to my mother or sister. I almost cut my dad off too for being too impartial, but he ended up divorcing my mother and realized how many times he failed to stand up for me during my childhood, all thanks to my brothers, by the way. He begged to reconnect a few months after my graduation party, and we've had a strong relationship since, just as I always have with my brothers. The whole family basically abandoned my mother and sister. It only kept contact for the sake of the child, a child they've attempted to use as leverage in many cases, but that's a story for another time. My ex had a little sister, one which I adored and dearly missed with the time away. About a year when I left our hometown, she contacted me via Instagram. She was attending college in my state and expressed how much she missed me, and after a few messages along with a coffee date, we reconnected. She kept me updated on the saga that was my sister and her brother's relationship, not that I asked her to. I quickly found out her brother dumped my sister after the child was born. Apparently, he wanted to wait until his child was born to not cause my sister stress, which would cause pregnancy issues. They have been maintaining a strict co-parenting relationship ever since, which my sister hated. She's even attempted to keep his child away from him, but my ex's family is disgustingly wealthy, so the lawyer stepped in, and strict protocols were put in place to guarantee both parents did their part. I met my sister's child through my ex's sister. I've gone over to her house after work with the intentions of going out to dinner, but she had texted me to cancel the plans. But my phone died, and when I arrived at her apartment, I was surprised with not only with my ex, but the love child too. And guys, the moment I met her, I simply fell in love. I had seen pictures through my family, but they were nothing compared to the real thing. My older brother has 2 kids, which I spoil at any given chance. May it be gifts, trips, or even just stocking up on their favorite beauty supplies. If they wanted it, I got it. I got the money and it never hurt my bank account. I've even organized various trips for the entire family with only my niece missing, and my sister would refuse to let her come with us without her. After seeing how frustrated my family was with my mother and sister for using my niece as a bargaining chip, I put away my pride and contacted my ex. I asked if it was okay if his daughter would join us on said trips. Immediately, he was delighted, because his daughter had expressed feelings of being left out from our side of the family, something we've never wanted. Ever since that agreement, my ex and I would plan out when the little cousins would get together for their trips. Then over the years, our relationship had turned civil. The civil agreement I had with my ex had been kept a secret from my sister. My brothers, along with my father and extended family, agreed it was for the best, as the hatred my sister held for us was hindering her child's happiness. But she recently found out after snooping through a family's Instagram page and seeing her daughter with us on a trip to Disneyland. She confronted us at my brother's house when he was hosting a barbecue. She demanded the same level of respect and forgiveness I gave to my ex, and when I refused, she called me a hypocrite and a-hole. Truth be told, I have forgiven my ex, and my sister too, for everything they've done to me. However, I simply don't want my sister in my life, and my family agrees. They've all had their fair share of drama with her and my mother. They've burned down far too many bridges, and if it wasn't for my niece, they would have been cut off too from the family. I could have been somewhat civil to my sister after the affair. However, unlike my ex, she acted as if I was the affair partner. As if I was the one who stole everything from her. She's never once apologized, took the blame, or even have a little shame. I don't want anything to do with her. I barely want a relationship with my ex, but he understands I'm only doing this for my niece. I don't want her to feel unwanted and unloved, and with her mother being my sister and her grandmother being my mother, she has a very high chance of that. I do, however, want to keep my niece happy, and perhaps her relationship with her mother may do that? Now for the top advice. There is no way, there is never a way to have a healthy relationship with people like your sister. Even trying would just make her get even more demanding and would start her trying to use her daughter as a weapon to control you the way she did your ex. Honestly, I discussed this with your ex, since he's been the one your arrangement is with, and he also has experience dealing with your sister's BS. Tell him you want to continue your relationship with your niece, but don't want any trouble starting with her mother. So you'll leave it up to him to decide how to navigate the situation. I've had this discussion with my ex. He's more than happy to keep it going, but I feel as though it will only cause more issues in the future. My family and I have come to an agreement to let this whole thing play out without interferences. As much as we want our niece to feel included in the family, we fear our sister would do something crazy just to prevent that. Nah, your ex has legal rights and a good lawyer. She tries to pull something up, she'll end up losing more stuff. She knows this. OP, your sister is just going to use and manipulate you again, as she has done so much in the past. When your brothers are saying to stay away from her, listen to them since they are closer to everything than you are. You are best off simply going through your ex to see your niece. Your sister is simply toxic. You can tell your sister that you forgave her long ago, but you'll never trust her, and she'll never be your friend. I'm thinking of just keeping my distance. If my niece decides she wants to have a relationship with me when she's 18, then I'll make contact then. I just didn't want her growing up thinking her mother's family didn't love her. It's a crappy feeling, and with the poison her grandmother and mother are definitely feeding to her, I can very well see her hating her cousins and uncles and aunties when she's older. You need to be careful for not letting them turning her like your sister, and do the same stuff to her cousins. The father has his rights and time with his daughter, so when he has her, spend family time with her and don't care about those two crazies. You have the support of all the family, so do it. And if your supposed mother and sister continue to attack you, go through legal actions and they will shut it. I think you need to butt out completely. This is not your child, and you are stepping out of your lane. If your mother did what you were doing, this would be all over just no mother-in-law, with everybody saying your mother was overstepping her lane and she had no rights to that child. Right or wrong, none of you have a right to time with that child. What you are doing is called parental alienation. As for your sister, she is clearly a piece of work. Tell her to get lost, but leave her child alone. Last story. Told my sister she doesn't deserve to be a mother on Mother's Day. I, 19 female, told my sister, 30 female, that she doesn't deserve to be a mother on Mother's Day. My nephew is currently 3 years old, and she barely treats him like a son, but rather an accessory. She's constantly in social media, flaunting her motherhood. She tells people it's so hard to be a single mom, when that's something she absolutely chose for herself. She decided to get pregnant on her own, and cut ties with a father who wanted to be there for my nephew. Just recently, my sister left for another state to work on herself and her finances. She left my nephew with my parents, and it's been hard for everyone. She gradually stopped calling us frequently and starts up an argument with my parents when they ask her for money to get him things he needs, such as diapers, wipes, food, etc. She tells them she doesn't need to pay them for those things because that's their grandson. And if she keeps giving them money all the time, then she left his state for no reason because she'll have no money to provide for them when she gets back. It's infuriating. As she does this, she posts on social media about how she's in the best position of her life, how her mental health is improving, and she's living the life as a single mom. She has a bit of a temper when confronted, so I've always held back on giving my opinion. But just before Mother's Day came around, my dad offered to take my nephew to her so she could be with her son. Mind you, she hasn't seen him in around 4 months. My dad asked her for the address and just stopped answering him. I messaged her and asked her where she was, and she replied that she was in a further state than she previously said. It seemed as if she didn't want to get a visit from my dad and her son. When Mother's Day came around, she posted a celebration with her friends at a club. I deserve this. Happy Mother's Day to me. I got fed up with this and told her she didn't deserve to be a mother. I told her that she doesn't deserve to have such a beautiful son, and he's going to absolutely hate her and forget her when he begins to understand why she isn't around. My parents said I was wrong about this. Edit, I'd like to make a few things clear. The father is not in the picture. He met my nephew just once when he was 1. He had the interest to be in his life to create one with my sister, not for the well-being of my nephew. He's just as bad, I believe. My parents definitely do enable her toxic behaviors, which is why this is such a complex case. Although she's 30, she acts like a child. She acts very entitled to my parents' money and help, which has made it easy for her to abandon my nephew to them. My mom loves my nephew like he's her own son, and the reason they got upset with me was because they didn't want me to challenge her to come back. My nephew prefers my mother much more. Their bond is inseparable, and everyone's afraid of her taking him away. They want to get a lawyer involved, and while it may sound like a simple solution, the trauma that comes with it is absolutely terrible for him. They don't want him to feel nothing less than a loved and cherished boy. He's a great boy. He's very loving and sensitive. Although he can't fully understand what's going on, he feels it. He has attachment issues with my mother. It's noticeable he's afraid she'll abandon him too. I hope you said that on her social media account for all her followers to see. I would love nothing more, but she blocked me and everything. Your sister sounds absolutely horrific. Just had a kid, as you said, to have as an accessory. It's disgusting when people do this. I know it's hard for your parents, but I would go to court and get full custody of the boy. That way, whenever your sister does come back, she can't use him anymore. Or if your parents don't want to do that, maybe get the boy's father in the picture, if he still wants to be a father. But I definitely think court needs to be involved. She doesn't even want him to visit her. That's just disgusting. I talked to my dad about this, and they're seriously considering taking custody of my nephew. Since she left, he's been struggling emotionally. He hasn't spoken a word, and although she's not around, she completely protests the idea of therapy. They want to place take him, but they can't do that without her permission apparently. So in the best interest of him, that may very well be happening sometime in the future. She literally abandoned him. I wouldn't think the courts would allow the decision to be up to her at this point. If she hasn't seen her kid in 4 months, moved far away, and won't say where, it's time to file for custody. This will clear up everything really quick. Mom will come and get the kid, show up to court, or she won't and will pay child support. Maybe then the dad can be involved in his life too. Good luck. The fact that she refuses to give an address to where she currently is means you need to send copies to her last known address. This actually works in the petitioner's favor. Parents need to file for emergency custody with all the text messages, any social media posts you all can find, and if there are any Venmos you can. You all cannot even get him medical attention if he becomes sick and needs a doctor. That's the thing. She lived with my parents prior to moving away. As soon as she got pregnant, she moved in and had my parents take care of her financially. She was living off of my parents up until she decided that she needed to get away from here and work for a better life for her and my nephew. Well then, I guess she should have supplied a current address, because if your parents' home is still her only known residence, then the paperwork would be sent there. I would do a cursory search for a name/address based on the states she's claimed to be in, but if nothing comes up, that's her fault. An emergency order is normally done on the day it's filed with the courts. In the address section, your parents can also just write unknown. The court may attempt to call her during the hearing, but if she doesn't pick up, they're not going to waste time waiting more than that day. The order will be temporary, and they can get paperwork to file for more permanent custody while there. Child services may be called in during the emergency custody period to assess an attempt to track down both biological parents. But if y'all don't know who the father is and she refuses to name him, then the decision will be whether to keep him with your parents or your sister, if she even wants him. Am I the a-hole for not going to my brother and now sister-in-law's wedding and for calling my sister-in-law a fat witch? I am 20 female and my brother is 28 male, and my now sister-in-law is 30 female. About 6 months ago, I actually stuck to a regime of weight loss, and it worked. I was 135 pounds and 5 feet 1, and now I am 105 pounds. 6 to 7 months ago, my brother gave me a heads up that his now wife, whom then I was kind of friends with, wanted me there as a bridesmaid. A few times I have gone to Starbucks with her and gotten our nails done together. I got busy with school and focusing on weight loss, so I didn't see them until this early June. Yes, of course there are breaks, but I wanted to rest in my apartment because I was burnt out from school. I appreciate them understanding I have school and can't make it when they were picking bridesmaid dresses or other things of that sort. The college I go to is across the country while we live in the East Coast. So when I saw them this late May 30 pounds lighter, my now sister-in-law said, "Why did you lose weight?" And I replied, "Because I felt I wasn't healthy. Now I feel my best." She frowned and didn't say anything. I just chalked it up to her being a bit nervous about her wedding. She had already sent me the photos of the dress and needed me to come for measurements, but I couldn't, due to it wasn't in my budget as flight tickets are expensive. So they got me a FaceTime with a person who measures and makes the dresses based on that, and helps me measure over a call. They weren't there while I was measuring, they were preparing for something else. So my brother, after the conversation that happened above, came up to me and asked me if I could put on a few pounds. He explained his now wife is jealous of how I look thinner than her. I asked to speak to her about this matter. She agreed to talk, and I told her that her big day should not be ruined by how big or small someone is, and we should love how we are. She got angry and told me it isn't hard to gain a few pounds in the next 3 weeks. I told her calmly I won't be attending if she thinks like this, and she started to lose her temper and started to insult me, saying that I used to be a fat cow and other things of that sort. So finally I just said, "I'm not coming to your wedding, you fat witch." My brother and our parents are calling me out and saying I messed up. Was I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. LMAO. To be honest, I feel like everyone is gonna come after me, but I'm gonna say not the a-hole. She is projecting on you because she's fat and has decided to do nothing about it. Good job, Opie. I never complain when I see a heavier person taking up gym equipment because I understand how it can be daunting to start your journey to being healthy. The fact your family is calling you an a-hole and your brother is trying to force you to gain weight is pretty dumb. Forcing yourself to gain weight to please others is an eating disorder in itself. I'm pretty skinny, and my ex told me I needed to gain weight because he liked thick girls, or he was done with me. I developed an eating disorder for a few years, until I was finally happy with my thin self. Screw them. Being overweight is not healthy. And your sister-in-law sounds extremely insecure if she's jealous of her own fiancé's sister. I probably wouldn't go to her wedding, but it's up to you if you care to please your family and still remain close to them. Is she even fat? Opie was 130 pounds and 5'1", became 105 pounds and is now smaller than sister-in-law. So it's implied at 130 pounds, she wasn't smaller than sister-in-law. Both of those are healthy weights, so sister-in-law is probably also a healthy weight, just bigger than Opie, who is now 105 pounds, which makes this whole thing even wilder in my opinion. Sister-in-law is way out of line. Not a-hole, Opie. Not a-hole. Telling someone to gain weight for their own vanity is one of the most narcissistic things I've read on this forum. I would have called her worse names. Saying I messed up. Not to me. It sounds like you just avoided an expensive airline ticket. People like her don't deserve a place in your life. Make her apologize for her comment and her demand. She also gave back what she got from sister-in-law. Sister-in-law can dish it, but can't take it. OP's not a-hole and awesome. Next story. Am I the a-hole for breaking my sister's engagement? My male 37, sister female 29 recently got engaged to the love of her life we'll call Derek, male 34. They've been dating for about a year and a half, and we the family have gotten to know Derek since the beginning of this year. We all love Derek, especially my dad and I. We watch F1 every weekend together with the rest of our friends. The engagement was announced about 3 weeks ago. We were all obviously excited. 2 weeks ago at a last GP I was talking to Derek, and at some point, the reason I might be an a-hole, my mind slipped. And I said something along the lines of, "It's great you've found someone you love so much you would abandon having children." Sadly, my sister had to fight a battle with ovarian cancer when she was 16 to 17, which resulted in the surgical removal of her ovaries and, from what I understand, part of her uterus. Now, I didn't think much about my comment, but turns out she never discussed this with him. It was like a dropped nuclear bomb of information. He said now it made sense why she always avoided discussions about children. Well, needless to say, the engagement broke, and they have now separated. And in the eyes of my sister and mother, I'm the a-hole who separated my sister from the love of her life. Everyone sucks here. Obviously, your sister shouldn't have lied and should be honest with him. So it's her fault the engagement ended. But also, what a horrible thing to say to someone. Like not having children is some huge burden, and that your sister needed to do more to justify him marrying her because of her ovarian cancer. My issue is, even though she can't physically have kids, there are other ways to have a family, like surrogacy or adoption. It's a dumb and unkind comment. Everyone sucks here. If you don't have thousands of dollars, you aren't doing any of those. That would be a completely different conversation than just, do you want kids? Everyone sucks here. I think your phrasing, abandon having children, was unnecessarily cruel, even if Derek had known about her sister's fertility issues. Additionally, it's also best to avoid talking about people's choices surrounding family planning, as that's private discussion that they should be having amongst themselves, unless they bring it up first. However, and in the eyes of my sister and mother, I'm the a-hole who separated my sister from the love of her life. Your sister brought this upon herself. Fertility issues can be a hurdle in so many relationships, but that's something that should have been discussed way earlier than into an engagement. Perhaps if he had known previously, they could have worked out a plan to have children in some other capacity, adoption, IVF, and surrogacy, etc. Quite frankly, Derek would have found out eventually about her lie after they were married, and divorce would have been worse. I mean, I can't have children, and that's something I told my now boyfriend in the 30 minutes of talking to him. That's important for many people, and you have to let them know, right? Not a-hole. This situation is fairly unbelievable. It is absolutely not okay to agree to marry somebody while hiding the fact that you can't have kids. If she had told Derek, he might have been okay with marrying her and adopting or using a surrogate. The reason their relationship ended isn't because she can't have kids. It's because she didn't tell him that, and now he can't trust her. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting my girlfriend to repay her school loans to her parents? So my girlfriend and I are planning to move in together after 3 years of relationship, and money came up as a point of discussion. We are both fine with splitting up expenses in a 50-50 manner. We live in the EU. She is in university while I am soon to be working as a decently, but not greatly, paid government employee. The problem is that my girlfriend years ago chose to move to a big city and study at a private university instead of a public one. Her parents, likely being overconfident in their economic possibilities, decided to pay for my girlfriend's studies, but at the condition of being paid back as soon as she gets working. Seeing that she could have chosen a public and cheap uni instead. And now she has to repay about 50,000 euros in a country with a median net salary of 20k. My girlfriend's degree is not really marketable, and such a debt would cripple her/our start in life, hurting us much more than it would hurt their parents not to get the money back. As an addition, my opinion is that parents should facilitate their kids' life, and they should not expect children to be economically neutral or positive to them. My girlfriend assured me that she would pay her parents back from her own salary. But really, that would be money coming out of our already thin paychecks, and I would end up needing to compensate for her initially low and then even lower salary after the loan payments. I told her that I do not care for her parents, and I feel morally fine cutting ties with them. I told her that we as a couple need to make us two a priority, and that I do not want to be collateral damage of her and her family's irresponsible decisions. I'm not suggesting to flip off her parents, but politely explain to them that we have a serious need of money, and they don't. She proceeded to get mad, reassuring me that we would not feel any monetary damage, which is literally untrue, and that eventually we will be fine. Now for the comments before reading the mini update. You're the a-hole. You don't have to live with her if this is so bothersome to you, but she owes her parents this money back. Your opinion that parents should facilitate their kids' life and they should not expect children to be economically neutral or positive to them. It's just that. Your opinion. It doesn't really matter to anyone but you. Exactly. And that's so mature of her to pay them back, because she gave them her word and she is keeping it. And you do tell a lot about herself that honestly, she should think twice about. My kid has a job in her own apartment. She's insisting on paying me back for her car repairs. I didn't have parents who cared enough to help me. Actually, no parents at all. So I very much want to help her out. This agreement was around before you were in a relationship with her. You want her to forgo repaying a debt because it might dip into your finances? If you can't handle having merged finances, don't get married or live together. You're the a-hole. In our finances. And frankly, yes. Dude, what do you think would have happened if she borrowed money from a bank? You can't just stop paying back your debt. Do you want to alienate your girlfriend from her family? Because attempting to get her to not repay the debt is gonna cause some conflict. You're the a-hole. Oh lord. So you just decided her parents no longer need to be in her life? Just because? Oh boy, you're at it. Very unfortunate that you took the one comment not calling you the a-hole and saying everyone else is wrong. Because he would rather lose family than money. Not his family, of course. Hers. The cute thing is, he thinks they will never need them in their life to cut ties with them. Future abuse flag. Pushing for family isolation. Edit/update. I'm done getting lynched. Most of those who commented did not read my post, did not get my point, downvoted my explanations, and know nothing about me, my girlfriend, and our relationship. Obviously, the downvoting of my clarifications reflects the need to light up my straw man, and I don't see any reason. I think I have been polite and discursive, and I have only gotten insults back. Probably shouldn't have asked teenagers how to handle adult life. I initially kept it out of the scope of this post, but I did help her these last times financially. I do not hold it against her, and I do not want her to pay me back. I want her to have a successful life, even if eventually we might not end up forever together. I don't want her to cut ties with her family, and I would hate for it to happen. That's why I suggested talking and explaining. I have been accused of wanting to control her money. Apart from the ridiculousness of the fact that I am barely trying to control my money, I have been getting groceries for her out of my €500 salary. I won't blame my girlfriend. I advised her against it. But ultimately, she made a choice as a 20-year-old something inexperienced girl. But her parents should have known better. Ultimately, I don't want to be the one paying 90% of the rent, utilities, and food because we need to repay a useless debt. I wish to establish a thorough and well-thought plan to make a family of us. Morally, it's wrong to fleece her parents, but it's more wrong to cripple us two for a decade. That makes me the a-hole, but it makes an a-hole that has a point. A valid one. Last story. Am I the a-hole for ignoring my in-laws when they don't use my actual name? The first time I met my in-laws, they called me Rose. My husband, then boyfriend, told them my name was Rosie, but for some reason, they assumed my actual name had to be Rose, and so that is how they first addressed me. I corrected them and said it was actually just Rosie. Father-in-law was like, "Oh, not a nickname?" I said no, not a nickname, my legal name. They both made faces. And I was kind of freaked out because while I have been asked before what Rosie is a nickname for, nobody outside of my third grade teacher made such a big deal over my name. After that, they tried a bunch of different Rose names to see which one it was. My husband told them repeatedly that my name was nothing but Rosie. Not really sure if they didn't believe us or were hoping I would adopt one of them. I have been called Rosalie, Rosalind, Rosemary, Roseanne, Rosabelle, Rosella, Rosamond, etc. Each time they have been corrected. After a little while of calling me Rosie, they just went back to saying Rose. They have introduced me to others as Rose, called out my name as Rose, and they won't stop. Now that I'm about to be a mom myself, I am less patient and understanding of this, so I started to ignore them when they call me Rose. They dislike that. Last time, I did it in front of other people my in-laws know. My husband was laughing so hard and said his parents' rude behavior deserves being ignored. They feel like I'm petty and say Rose just sounds more like a grown woman than Rosie does. And why can't I let them call me Rose? I told them because Rose is not my name, and they are trying to make a point about my name, and I do not like it. They told me at the very least I should not be ignoring them like that in front of others, and it's embarrassing to call me Rosie in front of other adults. Am I the a-hole? Not a-hole. Or you can ramp it up a notch and call them something completely different than their names. You could literally call them mother-in-law and father-in-law and tell them that works better for you. Or Eleanor and Richard. Those sound like grown-up names. And make sure to call them the wrong names in front of others, like their friends. I have a feeling they will feel embarrassed and disrespected, though from the sounds of it, I don't know if they will truly get the point. May get them to make the change and call you the right name anyway, though just to stop you. Nah, they will go straight with offended. More so when she points out that this is the exact thing they do to her. Boomers really don't like the taste of their hypocrisy. Not a-hole. They're super disrespectful. I'd name my kid something like Jenny or Billy instead of formal versions, just to take them off. Our son will actually be Dex, not Dexter, or any similar formal name, so we know there is going to be some unhappiness there. I once had a high school teacher call on me using my sister's name. I knew he was talking to me, but I ignored him. He asked why I wasn't answering, and I said, well, that's not my name. If you want my sister, she's in Kansas attending college. If you want me to answer, I respond to Little Red. He didn't appreciate being called out in front of the class, but the teacher never called me by sister's name again. Not the a-hole. If they don't want to get ignored, then they simply need to call you by your correct name. That is your name, so they shouldn't be embarrassed. And if they introduced you properly to people, then they wouldn't feel embarrassed to call you by your real name. You aren't the one being petty. They are for refusing to use your name. I'm glad that your husband can see the humor in this and has been repeatedly telling them to use your real name instead of telling you to go with the flow to keep the peace. He told me their faces were priceless a couple of times when I have pretended they were not talking to or about me. Mostly I try not to look too over at them when they call me Rose. Defeats the purpose. Sometimes my husband will even chime in with, "Who is Rose?" Or, "I don't think there's a Rose here." Am I the a-hole for making a scene after my sister-in-laws announced their pregnancies at my birthday as a gift? My 24 female boyfriend, 24 male, has two sisters, Emily 30 female and Diane 32 female. They are both married and trying for a baby. Diane announced her first pregnancy at Mother's Day this year. She gifted her mother a baby shoe and a positive pregnancy test. Everyone was happy, and even more when Emily told everyone that she was also trying for a baby. Later that evening, I texted them both saying, "Congratulations, I'm happy for you." It's a bit weird for me and my boyfriend because we recently learned that I'm sterile. I hope it didn't cut the mood, but I'm really excited for you both. They sent me some texts reassuring me and everything went well. Sadly, Diane lost her baby 2 months after this party. Fast forward to last week. We, mother-in-law, both sister-in-laws and I, met for a girls' night. My mother-in-law wanted to organize a party for my birthday, so she asked me if that's okay for me and what do I want. I said fine, but birthdays are tough for me. When I grew up, my parents always made my birthdays about them. They never invited my friends or close family. They always invited their colleagues and friends, and they had big parties where they drank a lot of alcohol. So after, I wanted to be sure to have a small party with close family, 12 persons, and nothing really big. The party was yesterday. I was helping my mother-in-law when both my sister-in-laws and their husbands arrived. They both also brought their in-laws and some friends. So what was supposed to be a small party ended up with more than 40 persons. My mother-in-law was a bit fuming because we had to go buy more drinks and foods for uninvited guests. The party went well until it was gift time. I opened gift for my mother-in-law and father-in-law, then one for my boyfriend. It was sweet. Next, my sister-in-laws gifted me one small package for them both, which is fine as I asked for small gifts if they were willing to give one. I opened it, and it was a small size shirt, a more XL, and as saying best future aunt. There was also written with a marker pen ×2. The package also contained 2 positive pregnancy tests and a photo of them both touching their bellies. I looked them in the eye asking, "Are you pregnant?" They both said yes. Emily took the shirt out of my hands and showed it to everyone. As I was starting to cry, I ran outside, my boyfriend following me. I had a panic attack. When I came back, everyone was happy and they were all congratulating the pregnant couples. I felt really sad. My boyfriend talked to his parents and we left the party without saying anything to anybody else. I received, in the evening, some nasty texts from some of my boyfriend's family saying things like, "Why did you ruin their announcement? It was only a birthday party. Please grow up." I do feel bad. My boyfriend is planning on telling them to buzz off, but I don't want him to ruin his relationships with his family. My father-in-law and mother-in-law called me to apologize, saying things got out of hand. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. It's your party and you can cry if you want to. I think your sister-in-laws both knew that you can't have children, right? Why would they want to co-opt your birthday to make it about them? And then not be compassionate when you got emotional? I don't know if everyone in your boyfriend's family are a-holes, but whoever sent you the text about ruining the announcement certainly is. The other ones may just be a little tone-deaf. They knew it. But when I first messaged them about my sterility, I told them that I'm happy for any pregnancy, and I don't want them to change anything just for accommodating me. Maybe they've seen this as a green light for what happened at my birthday party? I think they're feeling bad, because they haven't texted me anything yet. So maybe they understand that they hurt me. I really don't know. No, it's not a green light at all. It's still your birthday party, about you. Not wanting to change anything does not mean smearing your pain in your face. And not apologizing? Clearly they might see you're hurt, but certainly don't feel like they're wrong. So they learned you can't have kids, and really thought that announcing their pregnancies at your birthday party was a good idea? That is unbelievably cruel. Whether they're intentionally doing it or not, it really sounds like they're rubbing it in your face and expecting, no, demanding you be okay with it. Like, "Oh, sucks you can't have kids, but we can, so be happy for us." Both you and your boyfriend are not the a-hole here. Everyone else is, especially the sister-in-laws. Not even just announce it, but turn it into their gift with peed-on pregnancy tests. Like, it wouldn't have been so bad if at some point at a party they shared their news, since it was a family gathering, but the way they did it is just cringe. Definitely not the a-hole. Next story. Am I the a-hole for only taking my nieces and not their dad after my sister passed away? My female 33, sister female 36, passed away a month ago because of cancer. It's devastating, and words can't express how we feel. Her husband struggled to pay off debts, and has asked me and my husband to take him and my nieces, ages 13 and 16 in for some time. I have to say, I'm not in good terms with him. We've had more than our fair share of disagreements in the past. He tried to sue me and my husband for my own mother's house, which I'm living in with my husband and daughter. But he claimed he needed money to pay for my sister's treatment, and this was the only way to get it after we, my brother and I, refused to help. It's a long story, but we're not in good terms. So I agreed to only take my nieces in, but not him. He tried to negotiate this, saying his daughters are grieving and need him, their remaining parent, to be around. I said he could see them during visits, and that was it. My husband agreed with me at first. Then my brother-in-law showed up with my nieces days ago, and I only let the girls in but turned him away after he tried to talk me into letting him stay. We had a huge argument, and girls went inside crying after their dad left, repeatedly saying they want him. My husband is backing out of this. saying we might be making a mistake separating the girls from their dad when they're grieving. My aunt berated me, saying I messed up entirely here. I argued that it's my home, and I don't feel comfortable with him staying after what he's done. She called me selfish and bitter and said I'm making it more difficult for the girls who just lost their mom. Now the girls are quiet, but my 16-year-old niece keeps arguing about wanting her dad with them. My husband still thinks we're making a mistake and making the girls resent me for what I did to their dad who's grieving. Not the a-hole. While it stinks that you can't be 100% supportive for the girls, it's his fault. You have to protect yourself. He's sued once. If he starts living there and establishes residency, he could try to squat. If other family are upset, they can take them in. It's OP's choice to help or not. I do not see the reason why she should let someone hostile to her live in the same house. I think it's already a lot that she offered to take in the girls while she did not have to. Yes, it's her sister's kids, but honestly, not everybody would do that in the same situation. If he wants to stay with the kids, he needs to find another arrangement. He is the parent, not OP, not the a-hole. We're all making the assumption it's actually OP's house. She even states it's her mother's house that they are living in. Oddly worded. She never once says she inherited a house. At bets money the inheritance is in question. I see a lot of YTA posts, but I'll risk the downvotes to say, this guy sued you. Was there any merit to it? Sounds like it was found in your favor. I wouldn't want him in my house either. The problem is, once he moves in, he's a tenant, and you can't force him out. Then you're even more of a perceived jerk for making them homeless if it becomes intolerable. He did not abide by your terms, but showed up on your doorstep with no plan except to beg you, even though you told him what you could agree to. He said okay, but then tried to make it suit him. All these relatives could take him in or support him, right? Why is it all on you? Your brother-in-law is presumably in his mid to late 30s and only sought help from you? It's all on one estranged sister-in-law? This is an impossible situation, and frankly, nothing you would have done would have been enough. How can you ask him for money for the higher food, /utilities/gas expenses when he's grieving and broke? How can you not give him your car to get around when he's grieving and broke? How can you ask him about getting a job and getting back on his feet when he's grieving and broke? If your relatives wanted to help, they could send him money and help him get on his feet, rather than come after you to take on a family. I can't judge this, because in some ways you are an a-hole and in some ways you are being completely irrational not wanting an enemy in your house for a long indeterminate amount of time and at your expense. But you were willing to help out the children and did not abandon them. You were willing to help up to your boundary and your husband agreed. The flying monkeys just don't want the burden back on them, so they will come after you hard, as pressuring you is the easier solution than writing him a check or taking him in. You're voicing the concern I also have. He sued OP once over a tenancy of the house. Once he moves in and stays more than a few weeks, he is a tenant. Getting rid of a tenant is not easy. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not giving half of my mom's inheritance to my cousin? Plus update. I, 37 male, was approached by my uncle, trustee of my grandmother's estate, 95 female still alive, a month ago, and was told that her irrevocable life insurance trust, ILIT, of $800,000 was to be split equal between him, $400,000, and my mom, $400,000, upon my grandmother's death. My grandmother pays the premium each year out of her estate. Now, sadly, my mother died of cancer 2 years ago, and per the rules of the ILIT, I have become the sole beneficiary of my mom's portion of $400,000. Now, a week after being told of this trust, I received a call from my uncle stating that it was now my grandmother's wishes that I give his son, my cousin, 32 male, $200,000 of the $400,000 I inherited from my mom. When asked what money he will be giving his son, my cousin, out of his portion of the $400,000, he said nothing. He will keep the full $400,000 because he is the son of my grandmother. If I were to agree, he would have me sign a contract saying I will give up $200,000, as legally he cannot change the rules of the trust or me as a beneficiary. Fast forward another week, and now I'm getting angry calls from my grandmother who has dementia, saying that she wants my cousin and I to have equal money, $200,000 each. It has evolved from $100,000 to $2,000 and now $200,000. She's unable to articulate where the money is coming from and alludes to it coming from me, my money, my will. My grandmother seems to have no knowledge of the trust being the source of the money, making it clear that my uncle has been coaching her and hiding the details of how the trust money is being dispersed. To make matters personally worse, my grandmother recently asked if I wanted to be written out of the family because I'm being greedy. I have also received a text from my aunt, uncle's wife, saying that I'm a bad grandson and have no relationship with my grandmother, etc. All untrue. I love my grandmother dearly and want this to stop. Now, another issue is that my uncle is saying that there will be no money in her estate. Well, at the time of her death due to her high cost of living, jazz band, movie theater, and five-star restaurant and lobby at her retirement villa. And thus, no money for me or my cousin will be available from her estate. This is why he wants my mom's and my inheritance to be split up for his son, who he says will get nothing from my grandmother. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to split my mom's portion of her inheritance of $400,000? Now my portion due to her death, with my uncle's son, my cousin? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole and lawyer up. Your uncle is up to something not good. I'm going to consult today. This is elder abuse. Your uncle is greedy and manipulating your grandmother. You are technically inheriting from your mom, and your cousin can inherit from his dad. If your uncle wants your cousin to have money, he can pass down what granny leaves to him. Your cousin is lucky to still have both his parents. You don't have that privilege, but that in no way requires you to share your mother's inheritance. If anything, it's a small conciliation for being without her. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole, but this sounds like a red flag for elder mistreatment. Please report it to the authorities. Please. My father has been pushing me to do just this. I'm an attorney, although not yours. This definitely sounds like elder mistreatment, and most police departments have a special unit that investigates. Some states also have adult protective services, which may be applicable here given that you say your grandma has dementia. Report this now, before it becomes a huge probate issue when your grandma eventually passed away. Edit. Thanks to all who have put in their advice. It's amazing to get an unbiased opinion. I have a consultation with an attorney at 1:30 p.m. today. We'll update all upon further guidance. Update. Spoke with attorney. Uncle is clearly in the wrong. It's an irrevocable trust and was set up this way and not to be changed. The money is solely mine as the beneficiary if my mother passed. There is no legal standing my uncle has to demand the scheme he concocted. I have no obligation to do anything. If he wants his son to have money, then he can give him money. Not my mom's, nor my responsibility. He said my uncle is being very greedy. He suggested I ask for a copy of the trust, and if it's not received, then he will demand it in a legal letter. As for the elder mistreatment, he said my uncle is definitely unduly influencing my grandmother against his fiduciary duties. He suggested I speak with my cousin and see if he can calm my uncle down to give him a last shot of coming to his senses. If the calls increase from my grandmother, then I could register a mistreatment claim and take further legal action. Last story. Am I the a-hole for asking our daughter to spend less time with her boyfriend? A year ago, my husband, 62 male, and I, 64 female, became semi-empty nesters once my daughter, 26 female, moved out of our home and to her first apartment. We miss her a ton, but it's been great to see her grow up. We still have our son 20 male left in the house, and we are waiting until he graduates so my husband and I can hopefully move abroad one day. A few months ago, my daughter has started dating someone, but we haven't even had a chance to meet him yet, and learning about her boyfriend has been like pulling teeth. We only found out she was dating when she sent a picture of herself to us one day. It looked like someone else had took it, and we asked who did. She said a friend. We asked who that friend was. When my daughter left home, she didn't have any friends at the time, and it was nice to hear she had made one. Even then, she beat around the bush giving details about who this friend was and how she met them. Anyway, we eventually learned of her boyfriend, but we have noticed she is spending lots of time with him. When we invite her to hang out with us on the weekend, she always declines and says she has something planned with her new beau. When we chat on the phone, she is often with her boyfriend at home, or out and about and so on. I understand this is her first relationship, and surely she is very excited, but it hurts a bit that she suddenly has no time for us. Last time we spoke on the phone, I jokingly said after she declined our last invite, "You know you can still spend time with your old parents, right?" but she took it much seriously than I intended. Is it so wrong to ask our daughter to spend more time together? Just some thoughts. The fact that you didn't allow her to date until 20 is ridiculous. It's also ridiculous you believe that this is her first relationship. Newsflash, she got used to hiding things from you. Why don't you leave her alone and work on whatever parts of how you treat her make her feel she has to do this? You're the a-hole. Seriously, when Opie said learning about her boyfriend is like pulling teeth, I was ready to say, take a hint. Your daughter doesn't want to tell you stuff. You may want to reflect on that. Gave me flashbacks to when I started dating my now husband. I had a horrible relationship with my father as a child, and the second I moved out of the house, I tried to keep my life as private as possible from them. A decade later and we're much happier. But damn, when you have a hyper-controlling parent, especially around dating, you become an expert at hiding things. Ugh, I really feel for Opie's daughter. Opie, if you read this, please try to at least take this to heart. The further you pry, the more you push your daughter away. I eventually cut all contact with my parents for nearly 4 years because they did exactly what you were doing. I only approached them because I needed to heal and move on. You are hurting your daughter so much. Please stop and let her live her life before it's too late. You're the a-hole, but you can easily stop being one. Please do. Am I the a-hole for calling the police on my niece who stole my car? I, 46 female, live on a farm with my husband and 2 kids. My brother Dwayne, 38, has a daughter. We'll call her Emma, 15. My brother and his wife have always been very quick to compliment me on the behavior of my children. Angela, my sister-in-law, confides in me about Emma's troubles. Emma is very reckless, shoplifts, drinks, has an old boyfriend, and gets into fights at school. She's also constantly suspended in and out of school. Over the summer, Emma had a run-in with the law, and they were told that if she didn't straighten up her act that she would end up in prison. They were suggested and tried therapy, but Emma never would participate. Dwayne asked me if I would take Emma and teach her some responsibility. The arrangement was that I would take Emma for the final month of summer, enroll her in school here, and keep her for the first semester. If all went well, Emma was welcome to stay with us. Otherwise, other options would be explored, those of which are unknown to me. Emma did not do well all through July. Her boyfriend drove over to visit her to my dismay. I tried to make him leave, but it caused some backlash, so I figured I would set visitation then wean her time from him more and more. Then I caught her smoking one of those electronic cigarettes, twice. She would never do any of the work asked, would talk back, steal food, break things, and would be rude to my children. All of that could be dealt with. I knew that once school came around, she needed to be more disciplined. So one morning we got into an argument because I told her I was chaining up the fridge, and that she better act right, or else she will be forced to scavenge for her food around the farm and cook it herself. If she doesn't want to contribute, she gets nothing the household has worked for. She was livid, throwing stuff, stomping her feet, and making rude gestures. My son and I left to go to tend to the animals' morning duties, and told her that she better catch up to get some chicken tonight or start preparing to pick some vegetables for herself. After an hour of work, I sent my son back home to get me a change of pants due to a fall. He came back asking me if Dad had taken my car. We quickly realized Emma had stolen my car. Not only that, but she did not have a license, only a permit. I did what any reasonable person would do in this situation and called the police. They found her 2 hours later and arrested her, saying she was to be charged with a misdemeanor for driving without a license and, I believe, joyriding. My brother and his wife are furious with me. They told me she steals our cars all the time and always brings them back, which that would have been good information for me to know beforehand. My family siding with them that calling the police when knowing she would be arrested was an a-hole move. Just to tack this on so I don't have to reiterate this to everyone who comments about the fridge bit. That was more or less an empty threat. If it came to it though, I can't say I would have totally ruled that out as crossing the line. Also, about stealing food, part of what I do is I bake and sell what I make at a farmer's market nearby. She would take cakes, pies, and other pastries I would make and eat them herself. I would make some little versions for the kids, but she would take the whole portion meant for sale and eat it herself, and throw out the extra. She would throw away 3/4 of a cake. Please note we live on a vegetable farm. She has access to vegetables and fruits. When I say scavenge, I mean go outside and pick something to eat and cook. I'm not denying her food. Now for the top comments. Not a-hole at all. She steals our cars all the time and always brings them back. Well, now we know where she learned all this from. If they expected you, her aunt, to just brush off her stealing your car, imagine what they let her get away with. We sent her to live with you because what we're doing isn't working. But how dare you do anything differently from what we were doing? LMAO, exactly. They just wanted to be rid of her. Stupid parents. Not Dae-ho. She stole your car. She assaulted your son. I don't know how I feel about chaining up the fridge. That seems borderline abusive, but as for everything else, I'm on your side. Lock her up. That was more or less an empty threat. If it came to it, though, I can't say I would have totally ruled that out as crossing the line. Send her back. She doesn't respect your rules or your authority, and you don't realize it now, but having there is definitely impacting your children negatively. Also, her parents and your family sounds ungrateful. Send her back. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not giving up my bed for my boyfriend's daughter? My boyfriend has 3 kids, 12 female, 7 female, 5 female. A wildfire broke out by their house and the neighborhood had to evacuate, so I told my boyfriend to bring his kids to my apartment. I've known his kids for months and they're all great kids, but they're a bit spoiled. My boyfriend's oldest daughter has health issues and they were at a hospital getting her treatments when the fire broke out. The younger 2 were at home with their nanny when the fire broke out, so the nanny took the kids straight to my place and my boyfriend joined us an hour or so later. My boyfriend came in carrying his oldest because she was asleep and he didn't want to wake her up. He asked where he could put her down, so I showed him to the room that I had planned on all of the kids and the nanny sharing. Nanny's a live-in nanny, and I guess she didn't have anywhere else to go. Room has 2 bunk beds, so everyone has their own bed. But he said he didn't want her to be in the same room as her siblings because she was going to need a lot of rest, and he doesn't want them to bother her. I asked where I was supposed to put her, and he suggested my room. I asked if it meant only for a few hours, and he said no, the whole night. I asked where we were supposed to sleep, and he said we can sleep on a pull-out couch. I said I wasn't giving up my room so his 12-year-old can have her own room, and he left with the kids and nanny. Now he's saying he needs to rethink this relationship because I wouldn't sleep on my couch for one night to let his daughter rest without her siblings waking her up and bothering her. No a-holes here. Parenting is a tough topic to broach. Personally, I think a lot of parents coddle their children beyond belief. That said, it's their choice. This sounds like it may just be a compatibility issue. Personally, I'd side with you, but I know a lot of parents that would be in this camp of doing anything for the children for even the smallest of things. I'm also leaning towards no a-holes here, but want to know what health issue the child has and what treatment she had received. That could explain the cuddling and could mean there was a legitimate need to have her rest undisturbed. She has some chronic illnesses and has to go to the hospital for treatments every couple weeks. Could be a lot of things, but that sounds like maybe IVIG or a biological. Both will wipe you right the heck out and leave you knocked on your butt for the rest of the day and the whole next day. And both younger kids are old enough to be told to keep quiet and leave the room if they wake up so they don't disturb their sister. So you graciously opened your home to 5 extra people at a moment's notice, providing a bed to everyone, but if you don't give up yours, it wasn't enough? I realized the oldest was sick, but the other children did not have to be in the bedroom if they were not sleeping, and there was a nanny there to ensure they were kept away from the older child. To me, it looks like a glimpse into your future where you will be expected to sacrifice anything you feel his children should be entitled to, regardless whether it is your private property or not. Just my honest opinion, not the whole. This is exactly what I thought. She gives them a place. That's not good enough. Like, dude, your kids are old enough to leave the room and stay out when they wake. What is the nanny for, if she's not helping keep them away? You can't expect someone that was nice enough to give them a place to go to give up their own bed and comfort to please you, or cater to your child. Also, people keep saying it's only one night, but is it? They got evacuated and no guarantees it'll be safe tomorrow, or for the next week, or longer. The kid is still going to be chronically ill tomorrow, and the next day and the day after that. Will boyfriend decide, well, actually she's more comfortable in your bed. We can stay in the futon. She's housing them in a time of need. They should be grateful. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to bring my nanny family's baby back home when they told me to? I, 27 female, have been a nanny for the same family for about 6 months now. It's a 1-year-old baby girl and she's the sweetest baby ever. I thought the family was really nice and that we had a good working relationship. Until yesterday. I always take the baby on walks. either around the neighborhood or we would walk down to the school shopping center where they have a little fountain and a bubble tea shop we like to hang out at. There's toys and games, and she always has fun there. We walked down to the bubble tea shop yesterday and we're playing as usual. We're usually out for like an hour when it started raining. It drizzled a bit, so we went inside the shop to wait it out before walking back, and then it started pouring, like storming. It was awful and it rained for so long. I texted the mom saying, "Hey, it's raining really bad. So we're just going to wait it out, but we're at the bubble tea shop." She told me it was almost the baby's nap time and that I needed to head home now like usual. I asked her if she had looked out the window to see how bad it was raining, and she said, "Yes, the baby has a cover for their stroller. She will be fine. Please head back." I told her baby has a cover, but I don't have an umbrella or jacket and I'll get soaked and will have to finish out my shift soaking wet. I asked if she or her husband could just come pick us up, and she said it's my job to do what she says. I told her I was not walking back in the rain. After an hour, yes, it kept raining, her husband came and picked us up, apologizing, saying he was sleeping and didn't know we were out here in the rain. When we got back, Mom screamed at me, saying how dare I not bring her baby home when she told me to, and accused me of kidnapping. Dad said she was being dramatic, but didn't really do much. She threatened to fire me and told me not to come in today and that we will discuss everything Monday. Was I wrong for not coming back? It was pouring. I didn't want to have to sit in a soaked clothes for hours. My hair would get ruined. I didn't want to get sick. Like, there's so many reasons I didn't want to be in the pouring rain. Plus, it didn't feel that safe. I guess if I'm wrong, I'll apologize Monday, but my boyfriend said she's being unreasonable and can't fire me for that. I feel like I should quit. I don't know. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Boyfriend says she can't fire me for that because of my contract. She has to give me notice 6 weeks if she doesn't want me to work for her anymore, or else she has to pay me for the time I'm missing. I also did check the weather, but it said it was raining way later that night. The sun was shining when we left. Mom also asks me to take her on these walks daily. I enjoy them, but a lot of comments keep talking about these walks as if they're for me. And yes, it was a thunderstorm. Now for the top comments. Not today, home. I bet should have complained if you or the baby got sick from being out in the cold/rain. You made a smart decision. That kind of rain sounds like a thunderstorm. Aren't most baby buggies aluminum? Yes, let me roll this lightning rod home. Or maybe my mom's don't take a bath or use the phone during a thunderstorm paranoia rubbed off on me. Not today, home, but I wouldn't want to keep working for her after that. Threatening/accusing you of kidnapping could have serious consequences. It's scary how easily she went there. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm going to talk to the agency because there's a mistreatment clause in my contract. When you talk to the agency, use the terms shelter in place due to inclement weather for the safety of you and the child. Not today, home. Or maybe everyone sucks here? Her reaction was over the line and I would not continue to work for someone who screamed at me and accused me of a crime. I agree that you should contact the agency and quit. But was it like obviously supposed to rain that day? Are they really strict on nap time? Is baby difficult if she gets off schedule? If it rained for an hour plus, seems like that would have been something you'd have seen on the radar. If your poor planning is going to ruin the rest of their day with baby being off schedule, I can see how that would be frustrating for them. And sounds like the dad was able to pick you up. But expecting them to stop work and drive again because of poor planning would be even more frustrating. Dad was sleeping, not working, lol. And she stops working to go to hair appointments and to the gym. So I didn't think picking us up would be bad. I had no idea it was going to rain. Like, it started as sun showers, then got crazy. It wasn't supposed to rain until later that night. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for wanting to serve my ex papers for full custody and child support for my daughter now that he has a new baby? I, 31 female, have a wonderful 7-year-old daughter I would go to the moon and back for and have been supporting her as a single parent. My ex, 31 male, hasn't really been in her life since we split when she was 2.5. He hasn't paid child support for the last 4 years and has sporadically visited her at his parents' home when she visits. He says he will visit her while hyping her up and then not show up, only to give BS excuses on why he never showed up, leaving her devastated and upset that he didn't spend time with her. He has blamed me for everything under the sun, which I can prove to not be true. For example, he blames me for not calling him so he can video chat with her on my days off, when he doesn't even attempt to try in the first place on his days off. He even stated he couldn't pay child support because he was rebuilding his car. My ex had seen multiple girls in the past 4 years, but has been seeing his current girlfriend for about a year at this point, and she has a 3-year-old daughter. He shunted our daughter to be his girlfriend's daughter's father, doing father/daughter activities like going to the pumpkin patch, holidays, and spending time with the 3-year-old. He forgot his own daughter's birthday for 2 years in a row and possibly for a third time this year. Now, his family and I heard a rumor that the girlfriend was pregnant 3 to 4 months ago. His parents wanted to be in the baby's life, and I was ecstatic that my daughter would have a half-sibling since I don't want more kids. He vehemently denied she was pregnant, and we left the subject alone. Well, about 10 minutes before I started my shift, I was told and shown that my ex's girlfriend had their baby girl that morning. I was livid. He had lied to all of us that the baby was coming and severed whatever trust with him we had left. I started looking at family attorneys in my city because I know this will get messy. He wants parental rights without having to lift a finger or pay child support, while I want full custody since our daughter lives with me full-time. Before people ask, no, he's not in our daughter's life unless he wants others to see he's being a good dad. The last time he visited her, she didn't recognize him at all. Yes, I have filed for child support several times in the past, only for them to die in courts because he didn't want to sign the paperwork. I'm at my wit's end with him. I vented to a couple of close friends and close coworkers about this, and the majority are saying I'm the a-hole because I should be excited for the new baby, and that with a new baby, he won't have the funds for child support. Am I the a-hole if I go through with getting a family attorney and serving him papers while he's caring for a newborn? Not the a-hole. I'm surprised you haven't already served him papers. Exactly. Also, the fact that he has a new child doesn't take away from the fact he is manipulating his eldest by being sporadic. It is only turning up occasionally to confuse her little soul and for a picture-perfect dad image. He's being a monster to her, and honestly, you're the a-hole OP just for leaving him the power to crush your little girl. He's not a father, let alone a dad. At most, he's a sperm donor that oversteps boundaries. Get your daughter out of that OP. Not the a-hole, but you should have done this from the very beginning. You need to retain an attorney now, and you need to remove yourself emotionally from him. His girlfriends, kids, whatever are none of your business. Your only focus needs to be on what's right for your daughter, or you're trapping yourself emotionally in a relationship with him when it literally doesn't exist. I'm not emotionally invested in him, especially with him cheating on me while I was pregnant and when she was 6 months old. He didn't come clean about until he ended our engagement.